In this video, we will look at how to use Wiggle Bones, a fantastic add-on that automatically adds some secondary wiggle to any bone it's activated on. Now, Wiggle Bones isn't native to Blender. It's an add-on currently still under development, and you can download it from blenderartist.org. There is a link down in the description. Here we're going to choose, as of the time of recording, the latest one, which is the B20 suffix, beta 20, I assume. So let's just click that to download. Then jump back into our Blender, go up to Edit, Preferences, and then to Add-ons and Install. After you have located the add-on, click Install Add-on, and after a little bit of time it will pop into view, and here we can just check this checkbox to activate the add-on. Now we can close our preferences, and 3 new menu items have appeared. One is under our scene here, so we have Wiggle Scene, and if we uncheck and check this, we effectively deactivate and activate Wiggle Bones on a scene level, so everything with Wiggle Bones will be affected. We also have an armature level, the Wiggle Armature, so we can deactivate the effect local to each armature, and then the bone options, where we have access to the variables that actually control the motion of our bone. So let's just look at all of these options. Here we have our Wiggle Bone options ramping up and down over time. With stiffness, the higher the value, the faster the wiggle. With dampening, the higher the value, the more resistance there is. With amplitude rotation, the higher the value, the more the bone rotates. With amplitude translation, the higher the value, the more the bone translates. And with stretch, the higher the value, the more the bone stretches. And gravity, the higher the value, the more the bone droops under the force of gravity. So in order to activate it on the bones we want, let's just move over to our armature here and select our second layer. These are the bones we kind of put away for the time being. Let's just expand our working area by going to the top right-hand corner of our viewport, click and dragging over to the right to join up the 2 windows. Now we want our wings to wobble, we want our antenna to wobble, and we want the bottom unit here to wobble also. So with those all selected, we can go over to our bone options and just scrolling down to Wiggle Bones here. While holding Alt, click the checkbox. Now all of the bones have Wiggle Bones activated on them. And if we rewind our animation and play it through, you can see we got some funky results here, and that's because we need to tweak our settings. So let's stop the animation, expand our view here. First of all, we don't want any of them to shift location. So the amplitude translation, we can hold Alt, click in and hit 0. We don't want any stretching either. So we can hold Alt, click in and hit 0. Now if we rewind and look back, cool, we don't have any disconnecting parts anymore. But it's not doing a huge amount. So let's just hold down Alt, click into our amplitude rotation and type in 150. Now you can see we are starting to get some really good motion here. Gravity, I think it works well for our bottom unit. I don't think we want it on the wings or our antenna because they will be too light. So let's select those, Alt, click gravity, hit 0. Now we can tweak the stiffness and dampening for each. And I find it nice to give a bit of variation. So if we were, for example, to go to our antenna here, they would be quite light. So the stiffness would be quite high. So let's select the 2 antenna. And I'm just going to drag the stiffness up a little bit. Let's just play that through. Feels a lot nicer. However, they're moving together in unison, which is, I mean, they are the same antenna, so they would kind of do that, but it feels nice to give a little bit of an offset here. So let's just bring the stiffness of 1 down a little bit. Yeah, so we have some nice offset here, which just makes it a hell of a lot more visually interesting. If you feel like the bones are getting in the way, we can jump into our armature, go under display options and change the display type from octahedral to stick. That's looking good. I think the wings here aren't moving that much. So let's go back into our bone options here and increase rotation, holding down Alt to affect both. Looking pretty good. I think it they could afford to be a little bit stiffer. And again, like with the antenna, let's select 1 and change the variables slightly. Let's go to 0.3. Looks good. I think the bottom part perhaps is moving a little bit too wobbly, a little bit too jelly-like. So let's increase the gravity to 0.8, decrease the stiffness to 0.15, and just change the dampening down to 0.1 so the effect lasts longer. Okay, that's kind of the right feeling, although it seems to be moving a little bit too much. So let's just change the amplitude rotation down to 50. Okay, let's switch off our overlay so we can really get a feeling for it. Yeah, that feels kind of nice. And it's also just super handy to have this as a real-time feedback in the viewport. However, it is just in the viewport. As soon as you want to render this animation, this effect gets lost along the way. So in order to make sure we can render it, we need to bake the animations of these wiggle bones, which we will look to do in the next video.